Today on the show, we have Joe Furey, the president of Michael Graves Architecture and Design. With over 350 buildings and 300 industry awards under their belt, Michael Graves is considered one of the leading design practices in the world. Joe has over 30 years of experience in the AC industry, leading business operations, M&A, strategic and financial planning, as well as succession planning. Joe is also a producer and partner of the American Building Podcast, which is a real estate podcast that shares the stories behind one-of-a-kind buildings as told by the designers and developers who built them. Joe, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. Excited.
Yes. No, Joe, when we started this whole podcast process, you were, I don't know, one of the first people we talked to, and we immediately we knew, oh, there's something here. Like architects, they have a story to tell, and Joe, you have a good one. So we're really excited about it.
Well, full disclosure, I'm not an architect, as you know, right?
Yes.
I'm an accountant, CPA, non-practicing, which finds me in a unique position in this industry. And many of the architects I work with, and we'll talk more about our strategy, they actually like that because I guess our brains are different, and the artist side of the way they function doesn't reconcile well with the business side for a lot of them. Some are very good business people, but it opens up an opportunity for somebody like me to be in a position of leadership in a firm with such history and a brand like ours. Unlike many other industries, I think we have to be like that expert who's practicing in the field. So it's unique and it's fun and it's cool.
Yeah, I love the balance. That to me that's obviously part of the secret sauce there. So and we'll learn more about it today.
So Joe, why don't you tell us, how did you tell us a little bit about Michael Graves, how was the company built, and then how did you join up? What happened?
So Michael started the firm in 1964. He was hired at Princeton University to teach architecture, and one of the requirements was that he live in town. So at the time, I believe he lived in New York, and then moved out to Princeton, start teaching, and then started the firm. And early on, the firm grew through some competitions that led to bigger projects. And from there, really took off as Michael's fame picked up. And then I was working for a big publicly traded IT services company, and was traveling all over the place as my children were little, and I sought out a CFO job for a small privately held company in Princeton, and the recruiter said, "How many of those do you think exist?" And the next thing you know, he asked me if I knew who Michael Graves was, and I said no. And I learned quickly, and I think it was 3 Wednesdays in a row of interviews, and then I came here. That was in early 2008.
And what did you join as? What did they bring you in as?
CFO. And I quickly realized, I think I went to go brief Michael on something. I said, well, here are the numbers, and here's, we can do this, we can do this, we can do this. And he says, what are you asking me for? That's what I hired you to do. So I quickly realized I had some more responsibilities and things that had to happen, which was perfectly fine.
Okay. So, but you're CEO now, and not everyone knows what that story is. Why don't you give us a brief of kind of what happened in between 2008 and where you're at now?
So I think many people know that Michael was paralyzed in 2002 or 3, I believe, and I joined in 2008. Michael passed away in 2015. Between 8 and 15, I had spent a lot of time working on the succession planning. So negotiating the operating agreement, the buyout of Michael eventually, and setting up all of that corporate structure. And a year or two after he passed away, so in 2017 or so, I was in discussions with the partners here of coming in with equity. Got a financial investor behind me to do that, and I think we inked the deal in 2018. And that was the whole idea on that, is that, I would focus on the business, clearly not on architecture, and let them focus on architecture and really get the synergies of those skill sets coming together. And that's sort of where that went.
So Michael Graves built up the firm, and to my understanding, he was kind of the rainmaker. Tell us about kind of your company culture at the time, and then your succession planning. Like, what kind of prompted that, and kind of what was happening there?
Yeah. So Michael, very famous one of the most famous architects of our time. And I always use the example of being in the White House with presidents from Reagan all the way through Obama, although I don't know that he was actually with President Obama in the White House, but President Obama appointed him to the Access Board. So there was, some connection there. Not many people play in those circles. And when you do, like, you're out there at the highest level, and you're a rainmaker. When Michael got paralyzed, though, the transition of delivering the work actually started. And really even before that, I mean, the team here, the principals, were designing projects, and Michael would lend his opinions to it and his ideas to it, but it wasn't as if Michael was designing every single building, right? I mean, we had a great team here, and that's the one thing. Like, Michael designed great buildings. He designed a great company with hiring talented people here. So that operational or delivery transition was happening, unfortunately, because of Michael's health condition. But then, with him as a rainmaker, that transition of how to get work, I think really was lagging behind, and it was eye-opening for me very early on. I would say within the first 2 or 3 months here, when I got my hands around all the numbers, and I had a partner meeting and projected out like 18 months of revenue, and you could see the line starting to drop 12, 14, 16 months out, and said, well, what are we doing today on a new business focus to pick that line up 12, 14, 18 months out? And the response I got was, the phone always rings, and it will. And I said, oh boy, right? So and it did, though. That's the thing, right? It did always ring, and that's how the business operated. But Michael was getting on in age, and there was a transition happening, and I realized it had to change to more of a proactive, relationship-based focus, coupled with the skill that worked here, and the great portfolio of projects and the expertise that we bring, and packaging all that up with a little bit of a different approach, of proactive, getting to know people, and networking and things like that. So that was a big push over the years to switch that, and that gets into what we'll talk about a little bit later, the M&A strategy, and how we're going to continue to evolve the business underneath this incredible brand.
Wow. So that must have been super challenging, especially since Michael was kind of leading a lot of those relationships. So how do you cultivate relationships without Michael leading the way? How did you make that transition?
It's a team effort. It's not just one person. Everybody becomes an advocate for the firm. Anybody can make a connection and bring in, or create a relationship that potentially leads to an opportunity in a design project. And empowering our staff at all levels to not only take on more in terms of the design work and learn along the way, right, and grow, but to also be out there publicly, speaking engagements and networking events and all of those things. And the other thing is then outreach, our social media presence. If I go back several years ago, we didn't really have a presence, and I was fortunate to get involved in some business groups and learn some stuff. Remember, I'm coming from the seat of a finance person, right? And I never liked being that, green eye shade accountant, pointing to the scoreboard saying you lost, right? Here's the numbers last month. What good is that? Let's see what we can do proactively looking forward. And so I learned some things, and I'm older, so I'm not like a millennial with the technology and the social media, but we put a big push on that because I knew we needed to. And this was a couple years ago, and we went from literally 200 eyeballs in our reach on LinkedIn to we eclipsed 1 million when we started focusing on it. But then we had some couple cool posts that went viral, and we really expanded our reach that way. So it's a package of all those things. And then the building out our industry verticals with subject matter expertise. So there's great design, but then there's the expertise of knowing, if you're a medical facility, understanding what the doctors and the nurses need. It's not just designing a pretty building, it's how the building functions. And that's always been in our DNA, starting from Michael. Making the designs cater to and be focused on the people using the space or the product in the products building, business, I should say.
Well, so you've got, there's definitely strategy going here. I see a lot of gears turning, and especially since you're not of the traditional architect mind, where I'm an architect, I stayed at a firm. Okay, now I'm going to break off and do my own thing. Your journey has been way different than most. It started similar to, but now you're for all intents and purposes, you're sort of second generation for Michael Graves. Would that be fair to say?
I could say third. And certainly some of my design partners would be third. Yeah.
So you talked a little bit about M&A strategy and being used to help further your succession strategy. Can you talk a little bit about that? What does that mean? And what are you doing?
Yeah, so with us being a design firm, starting with Michael, he used to have a saying like, "What's your favorite project?" And he would always say the next one. Because we could go from doing a car museum to a St. Regis to schools to workplace to church. It was like the next opportunity. So we weren't organized by industry sector. We had this great brand, and I always say our strength is our weakness. We design in all these different building types, but we don't do 40 of these, 50 of these, 20 of these. And so but the reason I made the personal investment in this firm is because I believed in the talent here, the legacy, the brand, just the history, the prior projects, and our ability to deliver great work going forward. But I recognize the strength is a weakness. Our strength, we design all these different building types. Our weakness is we're not doing dozens of them. So how do we remedy that, right? Well, we could go chase work and hire 6 people at a time, and that's the hamster in the wheel. It's working hard, really hard, just to get tired and try to build something. Or we could say, let's find a great firm with great people that have more depth and subject matter experts in the verticals we serve, and possibly some that we really don't work in too much. And find those firms, put a deal together, and start to build the company out that way. And we get the step function growth, and we get that industry expertise. We get geographic diversity and reach, and we are well on our way. We've probably spoken to 50 or 60 different companies. I've been down the road fairly deep in conversation with several, but we are literally at the goal line where the 2 companies have come together already. We're waiting to dot some I's and cross some T's. And in January, we'll be announcing that first acquisition. And I have a second right behind it, a smaller one, but it fits one of those verticals nicely on the second one. And we're excited. And the firms we're talking to are super excited One of them, the second one, we actually work with on a couple jobs, so we know each other already. That's the key thing. Is like you could look at portfolios and say it's a match. You can look at numbers and run math in a pro forma and say this pencils. It's a great deal. But at the end of the day, if the people can't trust each other and work well with each other and like each other, it's not going to work. So that's where a lot of time is spent. And you figure that stuff out when you're negotiating. How is this person when we're negotiating? And is it a pain in the neck, or is it a give and take and an easy conversation? And those are the tells for me, anyway.
So getting those people, right? So and obviously this is happening. I mean, it's happened, right? There's some logistics that need to be finished out, but how does that blend work? You obviously you know the people you're negotiating with, and they seem to be good in this particular deal, right? How do you blend everybody? I mean, you have great people at Michael Graves, as you've said. So how do you blend them, these great people, with the assuming other great people at this other company?
It's constant communication, and what I didn't say before, the fit of what we do well and what the other company does well. I want to find firms where the things we don't do well, they do really well, and expressing that to them along the way in the process, not only with the principals as I'm negotiating with them, but when I eventually got to the point where I met the entire team and spoke to that entire team a couple months ago, I said exactly that. Like, you guys do things really well, things we don't do well, and you're going to make us better. And they're looking at it. Many of these firms, I mean, it's not my name on the firm, it's Michael Graves, and I'm not an architect, so I can say it humbly. Like, we have a great brand, and it resonates well when we're talking to other firms. They say, "Wow, we get to become a part of you." That's going to be, and the business synergy that comes with that, like coupling our brand with their expertise and client list, right? You put those things together, and you really got a formula for success. So what I think, in talking to the people and putting them together, it's not like we're swallowing up this company and now you're us and here's your new ID and forget everything you used to do, we do it our way. It's not that, right? I'm doing it because I see a strength. We do a SWOT analysis, and I see strengths and weaknesses in our business, and we're looking to combat our weaknesses by bringing in others who help offset those and bring other things to the table. And that's the formula for success. And the other thing is, with the first one, is they're in the Maryland, DC market. We have a DC office, so we're going to be combining the DC office. So already we'll have people from both companies sitting together in the same location. And I'll be back and forth, and we're working. We already won 2 projects together with this firm already. So
congratulations! That's
congratulations!
Awesome. That's super awesome.
Yeah. That's amazing. So obviously, what you're doing, kind of the vision behind it, is working. So for all intents and purposes, pardon the pun, you're building scale. You're building and buying scale. So why not go the more, what some people would call, a natural route and grow organically? Why go the M&A route?
2 reasons. One is finding skill set that we don't have that makes us better. Going to go hire a person here, a person there to bring that in, and it's just too slow of a pace. Additionally, I would say we're still transitioning from the Michael Graves architect model to the seller doer, subject matter expert, relationship based approach to doing business. So this accelerates that. And then finally, like just organic growth it's slow, and you do the acquisitions with the right people. It's not 1 + 1. It's 1 + 1 = 3, because our business, their business, is the 1 + 1 = 2. The synergies that you get out of that get you to that next level, and that's where it's scale on the top line. But as we climb this, and if we do it right, the profit levels should increase, right? And therefore increasing the valuation of the overall business. And I will say, I'm, like I said, a finance guy. I don't pencil these deals by saying we're going to put two companies together and we're going to fire the admin and the accounting like that's not what makes the deal. I don't even build those numbers into the pro forma. It's not this is not the way I'm focused on growing this. Because cutting costs that way to finance a deal and make it work. I mean, there's many approaches that work that way, but I just think there's so much opportunity on the top line by putting the companies together. So that's our focus.
Well, it sounds like there's a lot of focus on people, culture, even when you're looking at M&A, both internally as well as externally. You know, mine with Michael Graves kind of being the symbol of that culture. What type of like leadership was he, and you know, has that changed any since Michael Graves passed? I mean, what does it look like now?
Yeah. So when Michael was here, you know, I mean, we were set up by studio, you know, by that time. But I wasn't here when he was, you know, before his paralysis, when he was, I'll say, far more active. We had the product side of the business, which is an ongoing, just different ownership there. Michael played a role, a very active role in that when I had gotten here, because Target was ending, J.C. Penney was starting, and some of the other ones were starting. So Michael was heavy, you know, on that side, as well as some of the architecture. But from what I understand is, when he was younger and active, you know, he would set up the studios, and they would say it's more of an academic approach where he would do design crits and, you know, go from project to project, studio to studio, and offer some suggestions. And maybe some projects he took more of a heavy hand in than others, but he was very active and set it up with that very competitive studio environment. And, you know, today, you know, when I, not to sound like an architect, but if I'm quoting, you know, Robert Blazer, one of our partners, you know, he likes to say, you know, design as a conversation, right? So it's not like dictated, it's collaborative, not only with our team internally, but with our clients, right? So explore this option and that option and have a discussion, and what do you like, what do you don't like, and bring a project to life very early. I've gone on some pitches with Robert, and we just won a small project, but a very cool one up in North Jersey in Morristown. And you know, it's fun watching them. You know, he never had to go out and sell, right, until recently, as we're shifting this model. But now, you know, he's out there and he's talking architecture with potential clients, and it's fun to watch, because he gets them right in, and you know, and brings them into the process. It's not like a stay on your side. I'm the designer, and I'm going to design your building, and you're going to take it and like it. We and there are, you know, architects that are like that, and that's not what our business is about. We are very collaborative with our clients, and you know, Michael, that I think is part of our philosophy is, you know, the buildings and the spaces we design are there for the people using the spaces, working in them, living in them, learning in them, playing in them. Right. And the same thing with the products, using the consumer products that our firms designed over the years.
So, you know, the culture that you've created, or, you know, that was created under Michael Graves, and then you've been kind of, I'd say, modifying it. Would that be a fair word?
Evolving.
Evolving. Yeah. So how are you passing that culture down? Right. Because you were talking about the millennials, right? And they know nothing. Some of them probably are. Some of them never met Michael Graves.
Yes, there are people here now that have not met Michael. There's a few younger people that were hired just towards the end. You know, in fact, I had and I'll talk, bring me back to the culture. I just want to tell you a story about, you know, younger people working here. When we were approaching the 50th anniversary of the firm a few years ago, I guess it would have been in 2014, we had a big exhibit at the Grounds for Sculpture near Princeton. And Michael and I were sitting in the conference room talking about something. I said, wouldn't it be cool if 50 years from now, people are celebrating the 100th year of the firm, and maybe the guy we just hired, he's right out of school, he'll be 72 or whatever, 75. Maybe he still works here, maybe he doesn't. We're going to be dead. Most people are going to be long gone, right? But wouldn't it be really cool if we set this thing up and in 50 years from now, they're celebrating 100 years of Michael Graves? And he smiled and said, make it happen. Right. So his ego, was not, after me, this company can just go away. He wanted this company to go on. And we remember, in our strategic plan, there's a page that has a picture of Michael and a quote from him. And it's very early in the strategic plan. And that page will never leave that document, whether it's 5 years from now, 10 years from now, because that's who we are. That's our brand. That's our brand. Right. And we're going to stay true to the brand as we grow.
That's a salute to planning. I mean, that's a huge amount of planning and foresight. Good for him. Good for all of you. I love hearing that stuff.
And in the culture, with the bringing the younger people in, we you want to look at it from a business standpoint. You want the pyramid of people and salary, right? The more younger people who you pay less, right? Your financials work better. But more to the point, getting these younger people that we have on staff active and involved, the sooner we get them into a project doing something they're not comfortable with and letting them make a mistake, the quicker they grow and, become more of an asset to the company. And we encourage that. And, sometimes, I just literally had a conversation the other day on a small project with Robert, saying, let's get the younger people in to do this project because it's so small. It has to happen in a tight fee. And we know what the solution is. Let somebody else younger work and learn from it and think about what that's going to do for them for a bigger, more complicated project down the road, because they've already now got some experience they might not have had here, much less anywhere else. So we're better when we set our team up to take stuff on and learn quicker.
Sounds like a culture that many people would be jealous of.
Yeah.
It's a rarity, allowing for mistakes. I hear it all the time, and sounds like your people. There's a reason why people want to stay, because they're allowed to grow and stretch.
Yeah, and I had a boss at the company I worked at before, Michael Graves, who I forget the exact quote she said, but let them fail. Like, your team, put them out there, put something over their head and let them fail quickly, right? And then pull it back, and then they've just learned a life lesson and they're never going to make that mistake again. And it didn't break anything, right? Because you're watching them. And that's not, I don't think that's human nature for most people in business, right? It's more of control and, make sure everything's perfect, which we want, right? But the company doesn't have the ability to grow and scale if there's one person controlling, or, a handful of people controlling everything.
So you're saying that, so if I understand correctly, you're giving power really to even the newest and youngest of people in order to be able to look into the future and go, hey, we're building them up. They're the ones that are going to be the next generation of leaders. Am I hearing you properly there?
Yeah. I mean, if we're not grooming our young staff, number one, why would they want to work here for the long run, right? If they're just cogs in the wheel, whatever the saying is, right? If we're not setting them up to grow, there's not much in it for them, and there's not much in it for us as a business, right? We always have to evolve, and people get older, people retire, so you got to have that next. I think of it in terms of a sports team, all the time, right? I mean, every year the NFL, they're drafting somebody's replacement every year, and it creates a competitive environment. That's more cutthroat than this is, right? Because we're not limited to a 53-man roster. We can grow the business and have more people, but that's, you always want to keep bringing in talent and giving them opportunities to succeed. And in order to do that, they got to learn and make some mistakes along the way. And the technology side of it is an example. We've made some investments a couple years ago in technology, and I laugh. I'm talking to some of the younger people about that. It's like, what do you need? I have no idea what you guys are talking about. Tell me what you need. How much is it going to cost? And tell me what benefit it's going to bring to the business. And so we made some investments along the way, and it was just a blind faith on from my standpoint, because were they buying toys? Are they playing around, or is this really going to help the business? And it's in the VR and some of the other technologies for basically bringing the projects to life early. And some of the benefits are, visual. I've always said our renderings, and this goes back since I came here, our renderings look like the building turned out. We must have really good rendering artists. And then as I got to know our company, I would say, well, no, it was really our designers spend so much time thinking and planning up front that the early concepts of the buildings end up looking like what it's going to look like, because they thought it through. It wasn't like, let's put a box together and we'll figure it out as we go, and this changes, that changes. It's thought out very carefully up front, and it's coupled with the rendering artists and stuff. But we made an investment in that group, and they use different software, the game engine and things to bring these renderings powerful, really fast to life, but also videos. So we get like a 3D walkthrough of a space we designed in early concept, and to the level of detail of finishes and molding and flooring, like real details. And that's helpful because the designers can make changes before is a real cost impact, and our clients can see what's coming. And it brings the project visually to life very early, so you can make some decisions. The other is the clash detection. There was one story of a beam coming through the middle of the room, and without Revit and some of the other tools like that would have been in the field potentially error that would have had to be remedied way too late, and where it costs a lot of money. So and they put the 3D goggles. That was like, I think that's where they caught that one. They were sort of like walking the space with the goggles on. It's like, oh, watch your head, you're gonna hit that beam. Let's get that out of there. We had a miscoordination with the structural engineer and us, and so it's a cool tool. It's and the clients like it too, because they get to see their space, in virtual reality beforehand. So it's fun, but it's also a real good tool to help the design process. If it's not helping the design process, it's a
You mean you don't want to hit your head in the middle of the conference room? Like that's not what we're trying to build, those types of structures.
Yeah.
So what I hear is, so obviously you don't know the tech, don't need to know the tech, because you've got good people, right?
Yeah.
So you have good people that are saying, this is the tech we need to, one, make sure putting beams in the middle of a conference room, and two, it's gonna be such a better experience for our clients. Like they're gonna have such a better experience, which obviously when they have that experience, either they come back to you, or obviously they only speak highly of you in the greatest way.
Right, exactly. And it's when you get to be my age, it's like, I don't know this stuff, right? I mean, there's another I think of like the parents. Our music stunk, their music was great, and now our music's great. But it's the same thing with the technology. The older you get, you maybe there's some people that really get into it. I know what I am, I know what I'm not, but I always say I'm smart enough to know what I don't know, and you gotta. I know we hire great people. We have great people working here. We want to trust them, empower them, make them part of the process, the solutions, and take the chance, spend a little bit of money, and get some return on it. And we've gotten well beyond the return on that investment so far. So it's paid off.
So what you're telling me is that your investment in technology has become a competitive advantage. Would that be fair to say?
Yeah, I mean, I'd like to think that the industry some of the industry has to catch up. There's big players in the industry that are right there with us. If not, maybe could be even further ahead if they got the resources to do that. But it's been a game changer for us in evolving how we deliver our work. And I do think we're ahead of many of our competitors. I don't like to say anything negative about anybody or our competitors, because this is one of the most collaborative industries. It's crazy. We partner with so many other architecture firms on the same projects, and then other projects we're competing against them. And how many industries do you really see that in? So, but yeah, I think it's certainly been a game changer for us in expressing our work to our clients. It really, I mean, some of these things we've sold, as services, so the client can use it for marketing and, for their needs. And that's why I say the return on investment's there. But it's fun for the staff to use these tools to make their jobs easier. And it's a little more exciting than, I mean, can you imagine, that versus just, and everything just in AutoCAD, right? And it's fun for them. So, and if it's helping the business, then great. Like I said, if it's driving revenue or driving customer satisfaction, then it's worth it. If it's helping the design process, then it's worth it. If it's not any of those things, then it's a toy.
If they're just using it to play ping pong and virtual
Right.
reality, I don't know
Right.
if this investment makes
Right.
the most sense. But no, that
my
makes total
12
sense.
my 12-year-old was here in the tech room with the goggles on, and that. So I was like, wait, what did we just buy here? What's going on in here?
Well, so that was going to be my question. How do you know, right? If you don't have an understanding of the technology, how do you know it's not a toy, that it actually is an investment? Because you just gave us the three places where it matters the most. So how do you know when you, let's say, don't have an understanding of the technology? It's, you're an accountant, you're by trade, you're not an architect, you're definitely not a technologist. So how do you know when to make that appropriate? And obviously, technology enthusiasts, right? They'll go, we need this thing, but that doesn't necessarily mean that the company needs it. How do you make that decision? How did you make that decision?
So some of the people are not architects, right? They're the tech people. Some of them are the architects saying, I need this to do my job better. So it's and I trust them to, I mean, obviously I'm going to ask questions but the proof was two things really. With the proof was how quickly and how much better the end product was in terms of the renderings and the videos, for sure. So how quick that turnaround was, but then the fees, the clients were asking for it and paying for it on top of this architectural design work. So what better proof is there than that, right?
And
if it works, then it works.
And you got some side benefit as well. Virtual rework is a little easier to do than physical rework.
Well, absolutely. But not only for us, right? Like, so we're pennies on the dollar in terms of a development project, right? And if we have a mistake, all right, guys, put 100 more hours towards it, fix it. But if it's too late and it's steel's been manufactured, fabricated already, right? And that has to get reworked. The further along from design into construction, the mistake costs a lot more in construction than it does in design. So it's really important that we spend a lot of time in our process to make sure we're delivering first-class drawings. And this is a tool that just helps. If it helps get one mistake out, then it's worth it.
Joe, thank you for sharing. You've had some awesome insight. Thank you for all the insight that you about Michael Graves, about the company, about your culture, technology, and your M&A strategies. Is there anything that you want to tell the world? Anything you want to shout out before we end today?
Well, we're proud of our brand. We love our clients, we love our people, and we are very excited about our path forward in 2022, and the companies that are going to be joining us and growing with us. And we're going to keep it going over the next 5 years to 10 years and be a force in the industry more than we are right now.
And if people wanted to get a hold of you, what's the best way to reach out?
My contact's on the website, as well as my partners. So www.michaelgraves.com.
Awesome.
Just Google Michael Graves, it comes to the website, and then team.
Great. Well,
You've been
thank you very
world-class,
much,
Joe.
Joe. Yeah,
Oh.
seriously.
Thank you guys. It was fun. Looking forward to the next one.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh,
You'll be back on
100%.
for sure.